You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 372, Rampage. This is now, fifth episode of the Bad Batch series, and we're going to break that down to the nth degree once again, get into a lot of topics, a lot of theories, a lot of hypothetical stuff that we may be thinking about or talking about lately. And also, we've got somebody to join us to help kind of break all of this down, Mr. Jonesy. Jonesy, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, you look great.
It's a beautiful weekend for Memorial Day, and there's a lot of bad weather come and go, but man, it's clearing up a little bit. It's been nice.
Like your shirt, by the way. Nice shirt you got there.
Yeah, if you like this shirt, you can go out to tpublic.com/.
That's not why we did that, but that's funny.
Right. Well, we have no shame in our game these days, so
yeah, it's whatever. Okay. Well, listen, we've got a little bit of news to cover before we get into Rampage and kind of give our initial thoughts on that, and then really get into all the details as well. So let's start with the news, and I'm going to try to pull this up here. Let's first talk about, there is a new comic coming this fall called Star Wars: The High Republic Trail of Shadows.
Yeah.
And this is written by Daniel Jose Older, so we know he's got the IDW title right now, doing a great job with that one. So I'm pretty excited about the prospects of this one as well. But they had this labeled as a kind of a mystery crime, who did it kind of thing, right? And the characters caught my eye. But what did you think when you read this, the little synopsis? It didn't give us a whole lot, but what did you think?
No, very different. I was trying to think of the last time we had a Star Wars book that really felt more like a murder mystery type of thing, and not just more of a straightforward action type of show. And have we had some? I think in Legends we had some of this type of thing, but they were never overly popular. So I'm really curious what they do. And the cool thing about it being Daniel Jose Older, though, is that he has such a really interesting and cool sense of humor. Yeah. That this is something that he could take and you'd be like, I'm really on the fence about that, and actually make it into something pretty entertaining. So if anybody can make it into that, and I wasn't a huge Daniel Jose Older fan when it came to Last Shot, the novel, the solo book, until I heard him do From a Certain Point of View, the A New Hope one, and with the Stormtrooper, and I could not stop myself from laughing the entire time. It was just perfect and classic. I've been a huge fan of his ever since. So if it's something that he can work into some of that, a little bit of seriousness, but also, some of that fun and banter between them. And you've got in the notes here, Mulder and Scully from X-Files. And if he was able to accomplish something like that, that would be something very different and potentially something very cool for Star Wars to have.
Yeah, the two characters. So the Jedi that we've got, and I'm for those of you that are listening to the podcast, unfortunately, you don't have the benefit of seeing the image, but up here on top, we've got, or on the screen, we've got the picture, the only picture that was released. There were some sketch drawings that were done as well, but they're kind of black and white. They're not even fully developed. But in the top there, that is Jedi, and this is a new character, Emmerich Kaftor, who is the Mulder character. So he is a Jedi. He is of sound. He truly believes in a higher power in the Force, right? And that's kind of how he approaches this thing. He's being sent to, and I don't want to spoil anything, but he's being sent by the Jedi Order to investigate some events that happen right after the, not the carnival. What is it? The
fair.
Fair. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Same difference.
Carnival rides. Yeah. Funnel cakes and all that. Jedi funnel cakes. But, and then they have Sion Holt, and she's the character down here, the redhead, and she's more of the Scully character. So she's more about science and data and collecting facts. And so
she is all business, huh?
Yeah, she really is. And she's a very kind of like a straight shooter. No
pun intended based on the picture.
Yeah, exactly. She's sitting there holding a blaster. But then they labeled this as, they said this will expose the cracks and splinters in the mighty foundation built by the Jedi, which is super intriguing, right? Because again, we know, we're already seeing bits and pieces of it. Well, okay, so not everybody's seeing bits and pieces, but in the Rising Storm, There's a couple things that are happening. We know it's about to happen. I mean, it's inevitable that these cracks and splinters are going to start becoming larger and larger and manifesting into, eventually the fall of the Jedi,
Right.
or at least as we know it within the High Republic era. But this is it's a good start. Now, this is a limited series. It's not going to be an ongoing series, and it's not supposed to hit till this fall, whatever that may be. But yeah, I mean, this is great. I mean, we've talked about this, about having additional content supplement the other books, and we wondered, is there going to be even more coming out in addition to all the books that we've already had and books that are soon to be released here in the next couple of months? And the answer is yes. And this is good stuff.
Yeah, and it works out perfectly for our Patreon content. We're going to look to pull in more of the comics that maybe don't fit with the broader, overall narrative that we're used to sharing on the show and things like that. And so it's content like that is going to be really cool to still be able to bring out to folks and put that over to the Patreon side of things. So it should be pretty interesting. It should be fun.
All right, so we've talked about Rise of Shadow, or the Rising Storm, not Rise of Shadow,
right?
The Rising Storm, and we've got some variant covers that were released, or at least shown.
Oh yeah.
So we have the High Republic, the Rising Storm. This is the Target variation that we've got here, which is awesome. I mean, it looks really good. They've even got Ember back there. You can kind of see him, the dog in the back. So he's a star in this book coming up, by the way.
So who do we have on the cover here? We've got Bell Zettifar right up front, right?
Yep. You've got Stellan, Eldar Man, and then you've got Ty.
Right. So for those who may not, so Stellan Gios is the one on the front, right? He's got a little bit longer hair in the beard.
Got the cross hilt. Yep.
Yeah. And then, Eldar Man is the one in the back. Yep. He's going through some interesting times in this book. So, and again, a character we're going to keep in, like you said, Indira Stokes, who's Bell's master right now. And this book gets off to, this book gets off to a killer start too.
Yeah. It is surprising. Yeah. And I know we've already talked about it. But...
Oh, but the second one, though, this is the one you've been having a lot of fun with this weekend.
What's that? Oh, excuse me. Yeah. So this is the... well, let's get to the other ones. I'll come back to the variant cover for that one.
Oh, okay.
With the out of print. But this is I've got in front of me now. This is the variant, I guess, book cover for Walmart, and so you've got what's her name on the front there? I'm doing really well with names today. But you've got a couple of different other, I don't know, random randos that are sitting there. They're not real characters like that I've seen anyways, not in the books that are coming up,
right?
Unfortunately, but they're certainly there. And then down below, this is the Target exclusive, which looks really great. I mean,
yeah, both of those are great. And again, focusing right there on the Nile, so that's going to be fun. Lorna D is who you're looking for, I believe, right?
Yeah, that's Lorna D there on the front of both of those. That one's kind of up front, so pretty good. I mean, I don't know. I'm not really the biggest fan of the Walmart one or the Target. Or was it Target or Walmart now? Which is the Walmart one? Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of the Walmart one, but I like the Target one. I like the fact that it's got that helmet up close that way, and you can see the detail of everything on there. So those are all great. You should expect those here around the same time as the other releases. So I think they come with there's some little posters as well. I didn't include those in the pictures here, but there's little tearaway posters. Usually Target has those. Barnes & Noble does the same thing. Right. But the one that I've been most excited about, that I know you said you kind of teased, I've been having a lot of fun with this week, was this one. And this is the Rising Storm alternate cover. And this was very similar to the one they did for Light of the Jedi. So outofprint.com is the one that sold the first one. And that was one that if you bought the variant cover, and I think it was the same price, it was like $50, which I know is a little steep, but you got a pair of socks. And if that wasn't enough to entice you, you got this really cool looking cover. And I meant to pull it out so I could show it again, but you guys can go look that up. But this is the cover here of the variant, which is awesome. I mean, this looks like it stepped right out of a Dungeons and Dragons like manual or module. Not to segue into how it was founded, but what did you think of the artwork on this one?
This is awesome. I mean, Lorna D's axe in particular, it's like vibro. It reminds you of Dryden Voss's weapon, and just sharp. But this is like classic. You're right. This reminds me of like 80s RPG books and even 80s and early 90s video game art too, right?
Yeah. And
just this really cool thing. Of course, we've got the spinning lightsaber and just pandemonium going on. And then, of course, what would a day in the life of Albert Padilla mean or be if you weren't able to blend these into some sort of unique artwork and then get Kevin Scott to actually himself comment on some things?
Yeah, I did and I was gonna see if I can pull it up in time here.
Oh, I thought you would have had it up.
I no,
This
I
was
didn't.
this was awesome, folks. Yeah.
When I first saw it, I thought, wow, this looks like an old Dungeons and Dragons module, and I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and just mix these together while I'm at it. And so I took it and photoshopped it.
Oh, it fits so perfectly too.
And it did. And so I posted that on Facebook and just about everything. And he commented on Twitter and Instagram saying that he loved it. So I mean, what better compliment to get than that?
Right.
So I'm still looking. Oh, here it is. Let me see if I can do this. Safari can't open that page. This is not good television. But yeah, no, it was. I mean, it's great. I love the coloring on it is just awesome. I really like the coloring. The fact that you've got all these characters in there. I know there's people that are looking at this probably and wondering what in the hell's going on. Right. But all will be revealed, soon. Trust me. So let me see if I can. I'm not gonna be able to pull this up in time. I should have had this ready and I wasn't. I think all I've got is the. Oh yeah, there it is. Can you see that?
Yeah. It blends. It blended perfectly. You even got the Targons on there, man. Look at that.
Yep. So yeah, I just took an old AD&D thing, changed the font, put Kevin Scott on there. It was a lot of fun. But anyways, $50 for this alternate cover, but you get a tote bag as well. Let me see, and I think there's a picture of it.
That cover that might actually be worth the $50. I'm not gonna lie.
Just
that
was pretty alone.
That's for just for the cover because that is really unique. That is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I don't think I've got a picture of it here. Oh yeah, there it is. So you get the tote bag there, which it's a tote.
Right.
So, but still looks cool, and nobody else is going to have that tote unless they pay the $50. So
that's right.
Those bragging rights. All right. Well, I guess the only other thing we want to talk about, at least for this week, is just the. I want to say thank you to all of our new Patreon subscribers. I know we put out some new content last week, and we've got some new content coming out this week. And again, just as a reminder, every episode from now on, we're going to take one topic, kind of really dig into that even further than we do on the normal general release show, which is what you guys have tuned into or listening to today. And we'll get to what we're going to talk about here in just a little bit. But I just want to say thank you to Paul Moore, who upped his amount in Patreon. So thank you for that. That's very generous of you. We've got a new pledger, Carol Cantwell. So thank you, Carol, for pledging. And then Stacy Henn also is one of our newest pledgers as well. So thank you guys for that. And not to be out loud, Steph, one of the folks that works here for us at Earglue Media, upped her amount on her pledges. So, maybe she just really wanted the Patreon stuff. I think she was at $1 and she went up to the $2 stuff so that she could get the Patreon exclusive shows. So
I twisted her arm.
Oh, did you? Oh, okay.
No, I totally didn't. She did it on her own. She's like, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you make a big deal that I upped my Patreon amount? I was like, I didn't even notice. So sorry.
Yeah. Jones,
I'm out of it for a little while. Yeah.
Yeah, he's out of it. But so thank you guys for doing all that.
Thank y'all.
All right. Well, let's talk about Rampage. Let's talk about the Bad Batch. And,
this was not what I expected coming into this episode with this title.
Okay, so go for that. Tell me what were you expecting and what'd you get?
Well, right. I mean, when I saw the title, I was like, "Holy crap, we're gonna have some super big conflict type of thing." But I did not expect it to go this route of. I mean, again, the episode kind of started that way, right? We need money. We got a rescue mission. We need information. Let's exchange. It was pretty common what we've had in Clone Wars a bunch of times and what we've assumed Bad Batch would get to eventually. And it's started to become these last couple of episodes. But man, I did not see this one coming with a baby rancor, or I'm sorry, an adolescent rancor, not a baby, but adolescent rancor. Yeah. So it was very, very different though. But it actually, oddly enough, it was rather enjoyable. And there were some really, again, I think I'm an old record on this too, but the little comedic moments that we're getting are just perfectly timed and fantastic, especially with Omega with the comms bracelet now. Although it was a little bit sad how she got it, but it was just again. And you could, I think there's a lot of argument. This is another filler episode, but it's also, you can't just have everything gift wrapped to the Bad Batch finding information. They do have to work at it a little bit. And again, it's kind of cool that we are getting some ties in from the Clone Wars cartoons and, Echo calling on his knowledge before. So we'll get into it here, but overall, I thought it was a pretty good episode. Just not what I expected with the title alone. What were you thinking? As soon as you saw the title come up, what'd you think? what direction we'll be going. Because
Yeah,
really, they're not really giving us a lot of spoilers. There's not a lot of stuff coming out in advance of these episodes, so there's not much to spoil it on us.
Yeah, I would say same kind of thing. Like I hadn't looked at not that I was aware of anyways. There weren't any spoilers that were released. Usually the title comes out a couple days before someone sees it, snags it.
Those haven't even been a thing because it's been hard to get these title cards done.
Yeah, we had the first 3, and then episode 4 we didn't get the day before. We didn't get it till like the day before, night of, and then certainly the same thing with this one. We didn't get it. So, but seeing Rampage, I thought, okay, well, that does seem like it's ominous, and there's going to be a lot of chaos. And I think there was at the very end, but I wasn't expecting the story to go where it went, and probably what your point. And to that, I would say, I do wonder, because I know and this seems like it's every week we talk about this, and unfortunately it's because it comes up every week, but there were a lot of people, again, that felt like, oh, this is just a filler episode. This is just another episode that's going to introduce a couple things, and oh, cool, we got the origin of a rancor at Jabba's palace. I don't, we'll come back to that a little bit later. Like, I do wonder how much of this is going to come back, right? And 2 things in particular, which I won't spoil. It's in this regular episode, not in the Patreon, but 2 things in particular that I had my eye on and thought, again, space whales, right? If you ever wonder where Dave Filoni why he's doing the things he does, just remember space whales from Star Wars Rebels, and you could argue that was probably the silliest, most throwaway episode at the time, and it was probably the most poignant, significant episode given the way the series ended, right? So, so to that end, don't ever count anything out as being potential, threads or seeds that are being planted for exposition a little bit later down the road from Filoni and team. So, okay. Well, let's before we and then also as far as the Patreon exclusive, so what we called it was Who Killed Luke? Or I'm sorry, Who Killed Luke? So who did Luke kill? That's it. Now that would be even more. That's the extra Patreon. It's so who did Luke kill? And so what I want to do is get into whether or not this Rancor is Patissa or it is Muchi that we see Luke kill in Return of the Jedi. We'll get into some possible explanations as to why it could be this could be that Rancor or it could not, or how these things happened. Then we'll get into a little bit of, I don't know how we would phrase this, but the fact that some of the canon is continually getting changed, right? Some of the lighter canon is still getting changed, and it seems like it's more and more common. And is this just the new norm, right? And should we just go ahead and get ready for that? So all of that will be in the Patreon exclusive, which we'll record after this, and both of these shows will be released tonight. So if you're a Patreon member, you'll get both of these early in the morning, and then the general release will be out on Tuesday. And you've got to subscribe to the $2 thing just so we can get the if you want to get the Patreon stuff. So our way of saying thank you to everybody that's already pledged. Sorry, it's been a long day.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one tonight.
Yeah, no holds barred. Okay, let's get into the episode, and this opens up with the Halfling Marauder once again. They're on their way to Ord Mantell, which we've seen, and I should say it's been referenced in Empire Strikes Back. It was referenced in the audio drama and the comic book, or like the old serial comics, right, or the comic strips or something.
Yeah, it's popped up in a variety of Legends comics, I believe, as well, of course. But yeah, it's we actually get to see it on screen, though. I don't know if we've seen it on screen before.
I want to say there was a Forces of Destiny where they were there.
That sounds right. Actually, that does sound right.
I can't remember. I wanted to go back and watch it before the show, and I didn't get a chance. So if anybody wants to Wikipedia that or look it up, let us know. But I could have sworn that was where they said it was mentioned. So I don't know if they were just coming from it or they were there or what. But it was pretty short, so it's hard to remember that stuff. But Echo, interestingly enough, says he knows of an informant named Sid, and we don't really get any background here. We just take his word for it. I mean, he's done a lot of things, seen a lot of people, met a lot of people. So okay, fine. He's met somebody named Sid. But it's Hunter who thinks that, hey, you know what? We probably should go try to figure out why somebody's after Omega. And Echo says that the Jedi trusted this person named Sid, though he didn't know a gender either, right? So they're thinking it's a guy. They get there, and she says that she's not a guy; she's a girl or female. Right. So that's kind of the mission. And again, I wasn't expecting them to go that direction. I thought they were going to be heading to Idafor or meeting up with Rex or something like that, which didn't happen. So kind of that's still waiting I'm still waiting for that to happen. Maybe that's not till later on, right? There's probably a lot more episodes coming here. But then we also had Wrecker and Gonky. So Gonky is the Gonk droid,
Right.
and they finally, if you watch it with the subtitles, or not subtitles, but the captions, you could see that they had named it Gonky. So
that's what Omega calls the droid as well when they're when the Zygarians come onto the ship. Quick, Gonky, hide! Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. But yeah, it was great that we finally got a name. I was excited about that because I think I mentioned that I hope this is a kind of reoccurring character, and right now it looks like it's just a big weight for Wrecker because he's sitting there kind of, I don't know, he was doing something with it, exercising once again.
Was it like shoulder shrugs or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Where's Joe when we need him?
Yeah.
Or Twan. Joe or Twan. Yeah.
Dante came through for us here. Forces of Destiny episode called Jin's Trade is where we saw.
That's right.
Saw that. So thanks, man. Appreciate that. And then this is where we get the comment about Omega's got a comm device, and I thought it was a good moment where she was, because I mean, you give technology to a kid, they're going to play with it just like that, and even after you tell them the first time to stop, they're going to do it again, right? And they're going to keep pushing that, and so it was all very spot on in terms of it. But sadly, to your point, it used to be crosshairs.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it was, Tech makes the comment, doesn't seem like he's going to be needing it for a while, and so yeah, but again, the lightheartedness mixed in with that really worked well, especially with Omega, playing with it and just going through all the motions of what she hears all the rest of the squad doing and being able to do it and whispering into it from time to time. It's really good lighthearted comedy, and just reminds you that she's a kid, even though she's kind of thrown into this bigger world right now.
Yep. They make their way onto Ord Mantell. They get onto the streets, and it's good because we talked about in the last couple episodes that they are learning, that they're kind of stepping through parenthood, fumbling through parenthood, if you will. And sounds like at least they've got some ground rules, right? They kind of lay out some 3 to 4 ground rules. So number one, she's not allowed to wander off, which is good, right? We saw what happened last episode with that. She needs to keep her eyes and her ears on her surroundings at all times. So be more aware of where you are and who's around you, that sort of thing.
Right.
Trust no one but her squad.
Stranger danger, right?
Yeah, stranger danger. That's right. And I like the fact that she says, trust no one but my squad. Like that, again, they're solidifying her role in the squad, and they're telling her that she's part of it, and she's starting to feel like she's part of it.
Oh, we definitely got that cemented a little bit later too.
Oh yeah. There's some good moments in that. And then she says, if there's trouble, use the comm and give her location. So she has a way she's got the cell phone that mom and dad have given her and said, here, if you have any problems, just call us. We'll be here, that kind of thing. So, but this is good. I mean, this is, we're slowly putting some protection around here and allowing her to kind of roam with the team. They've accepted that rather than, just head back to the ship. Although they did send her back to the ship, but conveniently enough, it works well. It worked out, and that's probably why. So, they get over to Sid's place, which was funny because in Aurebesh, it literally says Sid's at the top. I paused it and looked at the Aurebesh. It's like, okay, it wasn't really that hard to find, right? I mean, I think you would have asked anybody, they would have told you, oh yeah, Sid's, it's the one with the yellow sign that says Sid's. So
they have to work real hard at it.
Yeah, exactly. So they walk in though, and I got a question. So maybe the first question here around Omega, because they kind of pan over and we see who is to be Sid, but don't really think much of it, and they kind of show a couple others like an Ithorian there fighting. I don't even know what the other race was, and it's Omega that walks up to her after she's moved over to the bar and says, "You're Sid, aren't you?" or something to that effect. And what is it, do you think, again, and it could be the Force, it could be intuition, it just could be reading body language and that sort of thing. Any speculation as to how she would have known that when the other guys didn't?
Yeah, it was just observation. She's waited and she's watching when Sid goes to the bar, because when they first come in, Sid is working like a mechanic would, right? She's got a toolbox and she's fixing some things up. And when she blows off the Bad Batch, when they're asking for him and she's really not giving them the time of day as a result, she goes up and sits at the bar and she keeps sneaking a peek over and listening to them. And that's when Omega is just observing and able to see this. So I don't know if it's any real special powers, except that she's just, I mean, sometimes kids point out the most obvious things to us and we don't know how we missed it. Like, well, how'd you know? Well, I just paid attention for 5 seconds. You wanted me to look at my surroundings. I'm being aware of my surroundings. So, copy that. We're on the right page. So I think that's really all it it was that she's just, I think, routinely becoming a more observant kid, an observant member of the team, I guess, if you want to go that direction.
Yeah, I would agree. I didn't put a lot of weight or value into whether or not this is the force at work as much as it was her following, like you said, following directions about being aware of surroundings. And if there's anyone that's probably leaning in and listening very intently after they've walked in like that, it's probably going to be that person that they're looking for, especially if they've just mentioned her name, you know?
Right. I think it's something also to remember is that with Omega, this is the one thing that she has value of bringing to the team, is that they get so wrapped up in mission and the normal ways of doing things, or what they're used to as normal, that she doesn't have all of that baggage. And she doesn't have all the training either, but she doesn't have all the baggage of how that is supposed to work and how it has always worked. Right. And we get some of that dialogue throughout this episode too, that times are very, very different now. And their ways of doing things just aren't as effective as they once were, because it's not a smash and grab type of thing anymore, or a detailed plan. I think Tech says some of that even, there's no rule book for what we're about to go do. Like, we've never done a rescue mission of a child when they thought it was just a child. Yeah. So we're hearing it from themselves that they're a bit out of their element from what they would normally do and how they would normally approach a mission. They really are having to learn a lot on the fly too, but this is where she brings that value though. She's able to, she's able to do basic things that they've taken for granted for such a long time. Or like you were saying last week, they've been so fed the information from the Republic because they're usually getting used to having intel, that now they're having to gather a lot of it on their own. Not that they're not capable of it, but now they're having to do all of it. And it's a bit overwhelming because they have really nothing. They're just going on the fly for everything now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's, I want to say it's Tech who kind of chimes in on this same topic a little bit later,
right,
talking about, hey, we're having to do things on our own kind of thing. So, but yeah, and just a quick note, Sid is played by Rhea Perlman, who is Carla Tortelli from Cheers. Yes. Yeah. So I had recognized the voice, but I did not even know it was her, honestly, until I went and looked at the credits. But I was so ecstatic when I saw that it was Rhea Perlman. So good to see that she's still working, and the fact that she's now tied to Star Wars is awesome. But okay, so from there, she mentions that the Jedi valued her insights, right? Her intel, what she had. Yeah. And now she's out of business because of this thing called the Galactic Empire. So she's herself is trying to, she's probably got jobs that need to get done, but she doesn't have, the resources, or there may not be as much coming in. The Jedi maybe were leaning on her for a lot of different things and now aren't. And so she's probably having to go to more, shady looking or shady type businessmen like a Jabba or other, crime pin or kingpin crime lords, that sort of thing. So it's going to be interesting to see how much of this, and I don't want to jump ahead here, but I'm curious as to how much these guys are truly going to be mercenaries going forward, and how much of the work is going to be dished out and generated by somebody like Sid, and if this becomes kind of like the central hub for a lot of the storylines at this point. There's probably still the main overall storyline of, hey, they're looking for Omega and Crosshair, but then this is where a lot of the story is being generated. It's coming out of Sid and Ord Mantell. What do you think about that?
She's Grief Karga now, basically.
Yeah, right.
Well, yeah, and I had another question for you too, just to step back a touch. Why do you think that she had much better business when the Clone Wars and the Jedi were going on rather than the Galactic Empire? Is it that the Empire is cracking down on, illegal behavior, and the Jedi overlooked it, or there was just too much other chaos going on with the Civil War, or the Clone Wars, and now that it's relative peace, all of that is being clamped down on? Like, why do you think it's such a shift for her business, though? Because you would think in this transition phase, sometimes that can be a lot of opportunity for the Hutts, and we've started to see and hear some of these things happening in the other content around us.
Yeah, so I did think about that. I put it as, with the Republic, they probably went through more. Let's see, what's the word I would use? They probably went through channels that were not as sketchy, like, getting intel and gathering intel more morally or in a more humane method or manner is probably what they would lean towards. And my gut tells me this is kind of like where she's at, right? She was probably somebody that had a lot of intel that came through just negotiations and relationships and that sort of thing, right?
Right.
Whereas the Empire, probably, in my opinion, they went and hired more bounty hunters, and they were more about, shoot first, kill, talk later if you have to, kind of thing.
Right.
And so that's not what her line of business is. In fact, it almost feels like she's not really. She even, when she talks about Fennec Shan a little bit later, saying that, hey, this is a bounty hunter. Like, this is not something I deal with. I don't deal with bounty hunters. That's the Empire. So when you cut that resource off, and when you cut off the Republic, when you cut off the Jedi, and they're not looking for intel that way because it takes longer. It's not. Maybe it's more expensive. It's maybe not as reliable as somebody going out, holding somebody's feet to the fire, literally, and threatening them with their lives. You can get things a lot quicker, faster, maybe even cheaper that way. I don't know. That's my theory.
Yeah, and to go back to your other question, though, at the very end of the episode, we were given a bit of a maybe, right? She basically says, hey, she gives Hunter the payment, and there's a lot more where that came from. We could be a good team type of thing. And Hunter's, we'll think about it. And, but so I think to your point, though, I mean, Hunter's aware of the value of connections and people and what they can provide, especially now that their eyes and ears are really severely limited compared to what they're used to and what they've had access to in the past. And so I think to have any kind of ally, which again, they also had a bit of a tense moment that we'll talk about, which I think makes it a little bit hesitant. But I think this is something where I don't know if those will be all out mercenaries. When I think about mercenaries, I think about, taking people out, assassins almost, right? And you're doing dirty work for other people. That's actually dirty work, not retrieving a kid, but actually doing things that most people would consider a bit on the sketchy side of things. And maybe just that's tainted by mob movies and everything else of the last 40 years of my life. But it's those are the types of things I think about when I think about merc work, right?
Yeah.
Of course, I always hear merc with a mouth too, but that also plays right into it, though. Deadpool's the same kind of way, right? But so it's but I think for them to have someone that they can get work from while also getting information and having some sort of connection and some sort of eyes and ears, it wouldn't surprise me if this was a thing off and on for a while, where they had a contact that they could keep going back to, and someone that they could relatively trust. At least they're trying to figure out where that line is, though. And I think that's going to be the part that's going to be really interesting to see if there's a reason that Sid gives them not to trust them, or if she decides to turn them in once she figures out more about that. Because you got to figure that she's doing the research on them too, to figure out who are these guys, these relics of the Clone War.
Yeah, and that's I want to get to Dante's question here, Teeny's question, in just a minute here. But the question, I did wonder about that. Like, can she really be trusted? Because again, we're kind of jumping ahead here, but at the very end, Hunter turns around and looks at her when she makes that comment, like, he just, the light bulb goes off of like, okay, wait a minute. Now she knows exactly who we are. She knows that somebody is after all of us, and she thinks it's them. I don't think she realizes it's Omega just yet.
Right.
But yeah, I wonder how faithful and how loyal she is. Can she really be trusted? You got to think if the Jedi and the Republic trusted her, probably a good chance that she can be trusted. But at the same time, like the one thing that we're seeing, the reoccurring theme here, is that things are changing, and you've got to change too. You've got to adapt, and that could be maybe that she does go more into a gray. I'm in this for myself at this point, because it's all about survival. And at that point, I mean, what kind of loyalty or obligation does she have to them? Right? Have them do a couple tricks, have them do a couple missions for her, get what she needs, and then hey, turn them in, get an even bigger payout. Get in good with whoever's hired Fennec Shan, or should it be the Galactic Empire or whoever else that's looking for her. So
okay,
all things to consider. But
before I forget, I want to ask you this question though. If you had to pick of who you would have more trust in at this point, given what we know about Sid, would it be Sid or would it be Hondo? Who do you trust more?
Sid.
Okay.
Hondo's just so I mean, I don't know. That's as much as I love that guy. It's like you just never know where he's going to land, right? It's
true. He will sell you out until he needs you to be his best friend again.
Yes, and then he's good for them, at least for them. Yeah.
Oh, gotta love that guy.
Looking like a true pirate. Oh, so Dante was asking how much time has passed since Star Wars Day that we saw here. You got any insight into that? You want to throw out any
Star Wars Day?
I mean Star Wars Day, Empire Day.
Empire Day.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that we're really still just weeks from everything going down. Is kind of what it sounds like. If we were beyond a month or two, I would say not much. And again, I think we're within, just from Empire Day, I'm guessing we're still within the week. It really doesn't.
2 is probably the most.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem like any time has really passed. We were right there, still at the end of the Clone War, very much in transition.
Mm-hmm. I don't know where that question was going, but hey, chime in a little bit here and let us know. We'll come back to that. Okay, so from at that point, there was Sid calls them clone deserters, which I thought was like, I thought they would pick up on that or say something about it, and they didn't. Maybe they just let that slide. Maybe they didn't even hear it, didn't click, didn't register. It certainly registered with me because I thought they're not deserters, right? Then they were kind of thrown into this whole thing.
Well, how would she assume that they were all clones? Because they really don't look like clones.
Maybe just the fact that they were all wearing the same armor.
Maybe so. I mean, that would be a obvious point, I think. But I mean, they don't sound like clones for the most part, except Echo.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought that was an interesting presumption on her part that they were clone deserters. But I mean, it makes sense though with the armor. But even then, the armor is very different compared to the regs,
Oh yeah. I mean, these guys look like these
are commandos,
right?
Yeah, they're commandos, right? Yeah.
Yeah. There was one other thing that I picked up that I thought was very interesting, and again, they didn't really expand upon it. But Tech says that they're the separatists. He refers to themselves as separatists over an ideology, which you think about it is interesting because they were fighting the separatists, and now they've become the separatists in this whole kind of thing, which I think it speaks to obviously the political shifting and swaying that we see in Star Wars, especially with like Saw Gerrera and Rebels and all that, right? And Enfys Nest is another example, but yeah, sorry.
Right, and and very much like what Saw said early on in this series too, right? I mean, he already saw that shift happen, and all of a sudden they were on the right side, and now they're not. So it just shows you how quickly things can change and how your perspective can get flipped on its head.
Oh, okay, that's right. So he says, just thinking of in relation to Sid's business woes after her Jedi transactions ended, it hasn't been that long, which is a good point, right?
Yeah.
It hasn't been that long. If it's only been a week and she's already kind of feeling the pinch,
well,
maybe it happened before then.
Right, well, and that was kind of the basis for my original point a few minutes ago. Was this shift is happening really quick for all of a sudden a bunch of, if we want to call it underworld activity or just side gigs, for that to really be squashed so much. It just shows you the influence of the Empire, I think, at this point, with the whole chain code thing that we keep seeing show up, and the registrations and just buckling down. They've got a presence on seemingly every world, even ones that they have no reason to be, and they've got relatively strong presences on some world that don't seem necessary either. So you could see why some of that might be, but it was also just kind of a general question about, did the Jedi just turn a blind eye? Because we've seen Kenobi do that quite often. Of course, Anakin can't tell which side of the fence he's on most of the time, but Kenobi sees the values in that.
Yep, for sure. There's so Fennec does this whole thing that I guess we're all used to now. We called it, originally it was like, oh, this is what you see in video games. You go into a town, somebody tells you, hey, I'll give you what you need, but you got to run this little mission for me. And so you end up doing these little side quests. And we joked about that going into The Mandalorian season 1 and happened in season 2. And now it's here. If you think about it, it was probably happening for the most part in Clone Wars and everything else. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of a tried and true formula. It certainly plays well to the audiences, and we all like to see it because it gives us an opportunity to get into other things and still feel like, hey, we're still, the story's still moving forward, right? They're trying to get money and all of that, and it's a weird time for them. So, but yeah, I mean, she basically says, look, I've got a mission for you, and you guys mind doing this little mission for me, and in return, I will find out who Fennec Shand is for you. So using some of her contacts and resources, which I'm wondering if they did use Jabba. Like, I don't remember them ever really saying it, but the fact that you've got Bib Fortuna, you've got Jabba, he's got a lot of influence. If anybody knows who Fennec Shand would be, this up-and-coming bounty hunter, and they did label her as a bounty hunter in this one for sure. You gotta think somebody like Jabba would know, and therefore through proxy, somebody like Bib Fortuna. So I don't know. What are thoughts around any of that?
Well, I think she's probably got a rather large network anyway. Even if they're laying low, they would be able to. And again, she said she reached out to the guild. I think actually, she reached out to her contacts in the guild.
She did.
So so clearly she went straight to the Bounty Hunters Guild. and went that direction. And to your point previously, I think as long as we are getting with regard to, is the story still moving forward, even though we're on one of these side quests, right? And I think that's the important thing. I think that's what they're doing okay at it right now. We'll have to see if they can keep this up, where they give you some piece of information that fits the overall story narrative, rather than we're just completely on a side quest. We get completely sidetracked. We barely escape, and now we're back, and we don't know exactly what the next episode kind of looks like. And we teetered on that a little bit last week. But this week, I think, gave us a little bit more, give a little bit more of that. We kind of end up in the same place because I don't know where the hell they're going now. But same type of deal. But yeah, she did reach out to the guild eventually when we were kind of all over the place, which I think is fine actually for this episode. I don't know that it matters if we're too sequential on some of the story arc aspect of it. But
I think she mentions that at the very end. She's like, I reached out to the guild. I think,
Right. But she says, clearly she knows a bounty hunter when she sees one, right? So she doesn't know who the person is. She's never heard of this person. And but she'll get some information from her or about her if they go do the gig.
Yeah. And speaking of the gig, so the gig is they got to go
Rescue
rescue a kid named Muchi, and who's being held by Zagarian slavers. And if they do that, she'll give them the intel. In addition to that, the bounty's 50,000, which she wants to split 70-30, which should net the Bad Batch about 15,000. Pretty significant chunk of change, considering that the most they could get for Echo as a droid was 3,000 credits. So yeah, I mean, it's a significant amount, and maybe that goes towards the fuel. And it goes towards fuel, and it goes towards food. But again, later on, the very end, she says one of the things that they're going to need, there's two things they're going to need: friends and money. And you're going to need more money than friends. And I thought that was a very cool comment, because I want to see that. And I know it's going to happen. We're going to see where the money either becomes an issue, or the fact we're going to see how it's being spent and what it does to provide for them. But I don't know what that could be, but I love that idea.
I mean, it's the same. Money makes the galaxy go around. It's the same here, right? Bribes and information, everything costs you, especially now with the transition to the Empire. Yeah, I mean, like, of course, now it's going to be more interesting of what kind of credits are they being paid in, right? Because we've seen this, and
what's of value,
right? Yeah, we saw it in Phantom Menace when things were changing currency wise again then, and now with the galactic credit. But yeah, it just shows you that you got to have money to grease the wheels. Otherwise, you can't even get your foot in the door half the time.
Yep. There's we get back to the Havoc Marauder at this point, and immediately jump into what we didn't talk about last episode, which is Wrecker's head hurting again. So
yeah,
it's definitely, last week I was thinking, okay, well, maybe it was just a thing, and it was him playing it up and all that. I didn't really believe that, but I know that was one of the theories that was out there. But it definitely came back in this episode. Now, the question was, when that happened, at least I thought to myself, okay, is it going to impact him in some way in this episode? And I can't say that it did. Like, there were a couple times when he was fighting that maybe he wasn't, at his best, if you will, but it didn't seem like it affected him. So it seemed like they were just, again, reminding the audience that, oh, by the way, don't forget, he's got a head problem, and this is going to come back a little bit later.
Yeah.
No immediate impacts there, but.
Well, what felt different this time, though, is that it was not as over the top as it was the previous 2 or 3 times, right? I think that's the main difference. This one, he's just sitting there, he's just like, It wasn't so, it wasn't so elaborate, right? It didn't seem like he was just looking for attention. Yeah. So again, that's why I'm thinking I don't know that it was an act before. It doesn't make sense, I think, for him, because he'd rather be in the action than decorating a kid's room. As much as he likes Omega, it makes more sense for him to want to be part of the action. But he keeps getting his head hit. I mean, we called it out last week. He got his head hit again, with Fennec, and then he, fighting the slave traders, as well as fighting the Rancor, as well as fighting the Dragon. He's just getting smacked around and getting banged into rocks and everything else. So it's gonna be a thing here. I'm starting to wonder if this is going to be that mid-season cliffhanger type of thing. Yeah. Especially if they end up coming across Crosshair again. I'm wondering if that's going to be something that's going to finally, flip some sort of switch here. If something that's going on. Yeah. Or it might be more like what the Clone Wars had, right? We have all of a sudden something happens and it forces Tech to finish the device, the scanner, so they can actually do something. And again, that could also be, okay, well, how do we remove this? Well, maybe this is how they get into seeing Rex too, right? Right. So yeah, but it's definitely a thing, though. I think this gives us all the confirmation we needed that this is definitely a thing.
Yep. No, I do too. It is a thing to be determined in terms of where this goes and what kind of impact it's going to be, how much it feeds into the main story. I think we speculated everything from what you said all the way until up to Wrecker kind of going, Hulk on them and them having
Mhm.
to kind of soothe him or subdue him in some way.
Sun's
Uh,
getting low. Is that what it is?
yeah, sun's getting low. Something I forget what. All right. They're now so Omega here again, another life lesson. She's like shocked that people trade other people. This is something that seems
Yeah.
very foreign and alien to her. And I thought that was interesting considering where she grew up. I mean, they never you never would I don't think I would ever call clones slaves, but I mean, they're being bred for a purpose. They don't really have I guess they technically have they have individuality, however, we all do. But I mean, they were put for. I mean, they're almost like they would. There's a lot of reasons you could say they are like a slave. So it was interesting that she was able to kind of not see that, and maybe it's because she grew up so close to it and didn't think
Mhm.
anything of it. Like, hey, these aren't slaves. We feed them, we train them, we take care of them, give them good quarters. I mean, it's very different than being bound and literally by your hands, feet, neck, that sort of thing. So maybe that was the key differentiator there for her. But yeah, she seemed like she was really shocked that people would actually take other people and make them do something that they didn't want to do
Mhm.
growing up on Camino. But
Right. I mean, it shows you that she still has that youthful, naivete still going on. Of she doesn't view the clones as slaves, even though we've clearly heard that question and we've heard the debate about clone rights type of things, right? And
mhm,
what should they be allowed to do after the war and so on and so forth. And but yeah, it's very different when you see it in the wild, right? Of breaking rocks type of thing. Like you said, you're bound, you have a collar on, you've got people with whips, then you're being supervised while you do hard labor outside.
yep,
Very different than what she has witnessed the clones. And she would probably say, well, no, they
not the same thing.
right, we were bred for a purpose. It's different, even though you don't really have any choice in some of those in those decisions, and we don't always see what punishment looks like either for the clones either. So I think that's something a little bit different. We don't know entirely too much about of what that might look like when they do mess up or get into trouble.
Yep.
Aside from Tarkin, right? And she knows that Tarkin's not a great guy.
No, yeah, exactly. Um, there was a moment there, and I don't know if you caught this. I mean, it's subtle and it could mean nothing, but there was a moment there where I think it's Tech is talking about being mercenaries and says that they'll earn a good amount of money, good amount of credits, and he seems pretty excited. I mean, Tech probably realizes, okay, yeah, we need the credits, and
He's a realist. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I mean, he's thinking 2, 3 steps ahead of everybody at this point.
Mhm.
But if you look at Echo, he looks really bothered, like just almost disgusted by the
Mhm.
fact that that happened. I think there's probably an obvious answer if that is the case. But what are your thoughts as to why he would be disturbed with the idea that they were now considered mercenaries and for hire at that?
Well, first of all, I think Echo's always got a sour look on his face these days anyway.
It's true. He does.
He
He's
never
like the
looks happy.
grumpy old man guy now.
He really is. He's the Mike Rondo of the Bad Batch.
Right.
Yeah, we don't really know if anything makes him happy. Although we have seen him softening a little bit towards Omega. I think this episode we saw 2 or 3 examples of that.
That's a good
Uh,
one.
but yeah, I mean, this is not what the war was supposed to be when it was done, right? And this is not. I don't think what any of them anticipated this is what the end of the war would be. I think, but Echo in particular. I mean, Echo. What he went through with his main squad before joining the Bad Batch or before all of the events that happened in the Clone Wars to him. I think it was just this wasn't what he was expecting to see at the end of the day and what it was supposed to be like. And that I mean, you get this sense of betrayal, I think, every day all over again, whenever you think about everything you have given, all of your brothers you have seen get injured or die or are now suffering, or now they're just completely different. And some you don't know where they're at, if they, and what you'll experience when you see them again, and whether or not it will be, yeah, we're brothers, or no, you're the enemy and we've got to hunt you down and we're just going to take you out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's just this opening the wound. It's like when they talk about Crosshair too, it's still real new and real fresh, and they've not had a chance to really heal over. And just when it feels like, okay, we're getting a little bit more stability, things are feeling a bit better, and then no, something comes over and scratches it open again. And
yeah, they're changing. They're having to change yet again, adapt again.
yeah. And I think for Echo, and we've talked about this before too, I think with Echo, he's always felt like a bit of an outsider in the group still. And I think when you have that discomfort on top of everything else, I mean, imagine Echo's brain is probably in just a bunch of different places and really struggling to figure out not only where he fits, just who does he want to be at this point? And they actually have choices on who they can be, but it's difficult to let go of who you have been as well to try to make that change. And really they're kind of forced into whatever they're doing right now. But he also knows this is just, I mean, at some point, this is all going to resolve itself one way or another too.
Yeah.
What does it look like when that's over? Yep. So it's very interesting time for the team. But I think for Echo in particular, he's had a much different journey than everybody else.
Okay. Yeah. And so from there, we finally get to the slave camp. And this was a great moment because I love the fact that you had all of them standing there and you've got the two, who was it, Tech and Hunter have the macro binoculars. And then you've got little old Omega sitting there and she's doing the same thing she's been doing the last couple episodes where she's just mimicking. And this kid, again, we say this, but kids do this kind of thing. They see, adults do it and they want to do it too. And this is good. Like it's her, like making herself feel like she's part of the squad. Right. And showing that she's got the, practicing her skills and all of that. But it was a very cute moment that I just love the fact that she's sitting there looking at it. And then she makes that comment about poor Muchi. Yeah.
We're coming, scared. Muchi. Yeah. She looks scared. Yeah.
That was really good. I
love the voice actors for Omega. And I apologize. I don't know her name, but oh my goodness. She's just perfect for this part. Like just the voice inflections and what she does. And especially when they were like in the bar with Sid and with the comm and the things like that. I agree or something like that,
Right.
It's the writing and then the acting of it is just, it's really, really good. It's really, really solid. But I agree with you. I was really surprised that she was the one with the macros and then all of the commentary of just how bad she felt. She's got this empathy and she looks sad, type of thing.
Yep. There's, for her too, I was, especially given the fact that this very next scene there, or the very next thing that happens is they start moving in on the slave camp and Hunter turns around and says, "Nuh-uh, you need to go back to the ship." Right. And I wonder when she was doing the macro binocular thing and she made the comment out loud, that's like her way of like justifying like, oh yeah, like, hey, don't forget we're all part of this team, knowing probably in her heart that they were not going to let her go forward. And so she was trying to make the best case that she could be a part of the team.
I don't know that I agree with that one at all. I think she fully expected to be part of the mission 100%. Like why would, because I mean, you saw how hurt she was, right?
Yeah.
And this is what we were alluding to earlier, he said that's an order and she didn't like it, but she said, yes, sir. And
he followed orders.
Right. It's not dad anymore. Now it's squad leader Hunter and
good soldiers follow orders.
Ooh, man, too soon.
Too soon. Oh, yeah. Great stuff. And I would agree that just the way the accent for the person, I forget her name that plays her. I looked her up. I didn't see anything that I recognized her in, but that's just on me, not her. But yeah, great stuff the way she's doing this character. Okay, so they move in. Echo heads up to the top. He's kind of the eyes and all that because Crosshairs, who you normally would have there, but he's not around. And then the plan is for Wrecker to draw them out and Tech and Hunter to grab Muchi, who again at this point they still think is this green alien that's daughter kid that's down there. And this is where we get the Brezzik. I didn't get a chance to look this up. Like it didn't seem like we've seen this before, but have we seen it before? This dragon thing, the Brezzik?
I want to say we have because it looked really familiar. But it was a pretty common design though. I mean, it's not very dinosaur like, right? But and the ability to glide through the air, very inspired off of dinosaurs in our in our history.
It was in the episode that when we talked about the Zagarians back when we did the Clone Wars trailer, remember we were breaking down the trailer? We talked about that episode that we seen this race of Zagarians in before. Yeah, there was one in there, and Slaves of the Republic was the name of that episode.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense then. Yeah,
sorry,
I figured it had to have been Clone Wars.
Yeah,
they introduced a lot of beasts.
It looked familiar. I mean, it looked probably cooler and cleaner given the tech that's behind this series.
Right.
But yeah, anyway, so that thing kind of shows up and lurking in the background. It takes out Echo, and then it distracts the Bad Batch enough that it allows them to be captured. Because throughout all of this, and I keep trying to temper my expectations because I understand they can't just be like the Bad Batch who they are today. This is not a critique. The Bad Batch who they are today, and as I know them 5 episodes in and after season 7, very different than I think I originally thought they were. Like they're not maybe as badass as I thought they were. And that's not. I got to give them some benefit of the doubt because things are changing. They're doing things they normally wouldn't do, and they're coming up with, I think, creative ways to explain how somebody like the Bad Batch would suddenly get trapped. These commandos, elite commandos, were suddenly captured by Zagarian slavers. It's not that the Zagarian slavers had did anything that was better than them. It's the fact that they were distracted by this dragon, which they were not anticipating. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. Am I wrong in feeling that way? It just feels like they're constantly getting captured or getting knocked out, and
then Omega save, and then Omega saving the day kind of thing. Yeah, I think this is the thing you always run the risk of whenever you take an elite group that you have intentionally kept in a very special place and you've had very limited interaction with them, and then you have a lot of focus on them, right? In order to make those stories interesting, they can't be great at everything and solve every problem without any issues, right? Or have any difficulties. But unfortunately, the side effect of that, though, is that they get trapped into things that seem like they're relatively silly, and that an elite squad would not experience this type of thing. But I think you're right, though. I think in this case, how do you anticipate having a beast that is quite large, quite strong, very powerful tail, as we saw as they started smacking Muchi around a little bit later? But
yeah,
I mean, how do you anticipate some of that? And these are slavers, right? So they're used to, they've got these electrified nets. They've got ways of capturing. This is what they do. This is what they're best at too, right? So they're hunters of the sorts. And but I agree with you. I think it takes the luster off the team. But I think you could also start to make excuses elsewhere if you wanted to. Crosshair's not part of the team, right?
Yeah.
So they're not working at optimum efficiency. They're all playing roles that they're not necessarily as good at.
That's a good point. Yep.
And quite honestly, the team isn't really functioning as well as they used to function either. And I don't know if that's because Crosshair is gone or if it's just because they're just so out of their element right now without the tools and the, I don't want to say the comforts, but they don't have their basic needs kind of taken care of where they feel like they're always prepared going into every mission, and they're just having to do things on the fly constantly.
Yeah.
And so there's no baseline for them. And so you could start to excuse some of those things that way. And I think that's probably the most likely of answers that's most appropriate, I think, is that they're not ready for everything that they're encountering. And every day or every other day seems to be a completely new challenge that they're not having used to. And then they've got this kid that they got to keep watch over.
Yeah. Right.
Right. And everything goes into that. And it's just very different than what they're used to. And they're just not doing as well with it as what we would have expected them to, a few years ago when we saw them in Clone Wars.
Yep. No, I like all that. I mean, that certainly makes sense. It goes back to also, we had talked originally when this was all happening. I brought in that whole business term of, storming, norming, forming and performing, right? That whole thing, the different stages of team building, right? And what they go through. And that we actually said it on that episode that, hey, now the dynamic is going to change and they're going to have to get used to working it differently. They've got a lot of things that have changed externally, internally, all the good reasons you just brought up. So yeah, maybe some of that is, so maybe I'm not cutting them enough slack for how exploited they seem to be getting here.
But I get it. We want our heroes to be larger than life. I mean, this was a big, I don't want to say criticism, but this is what really challenged people, and then people had a hard time with Luke Skywalker, right? That Luke Skywalker was someone other than the hero that we had known him to be throughout Legends and what we had assumed he would be at, and really what we thought was more of a presumption, not an assumption, right?
Yeah.
And only for it to be taken in a completely different direction. The bottom kind of, felt like the bottom got pulled out a little bit under the rug. So, but I think that's the thing, right? We want our heroes to be larger than life and to be able to do and accomplish anything. I think at the end of the day, we keep seeing them be successful though, right? Mm-hmm. So they do find ways, and however that happens is the way it happens. But, they are still finding a way to make it through though.
Yes. And on Luke, since you brought it up, that Luke Skywalker in my head is still out there. We just haven't seen him yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it doesn't mean, that's the thing. It doesn't mean,
right.
Just like the Bad Batch, we know that they are great at what they do. And we have seen them be great even in these more challenging times. But yeah, it doesn't mean that it's like, to your point earlier, it doesn't mean that it's not going to be a bumpy road for a while.
Yes. Yep. Okay, so let's see. We had that really quick moment here where we we saw Bib Fortuna, and I got to say, the first time I saw this, I thought, oh, that's interesting. They're bringing Jabba in this because they hadn't,
Mhm.
obviously put two and two together. I had no idea that Muchi was a rancor, but the idea that Jabba was that Bib Fortuna, I thought, okay, we're definitely gonna get some kind of a Jabba reference, and it's interesting that we're going there already. But maybe not surprisingly, right? By the time we get to arguably A New Hope, he is kind of like the pinnacle of crime lords, right? I mean, he's kind of running everything, and depending on where they go, I mean, all I've got is legend stuff. So I don't really have anything that's canon at this point to talk about. But if you go by the legend stuff, yeah, he's like the main dude. Like he's the main crime lord, badass of the galaxy, and his hand is in just about everything. And the other Hutts are kind of looking at him, and if they haven't been killed by him already, so
Right, and we saw this transition happening in the Clone Wars too, right? So Jabba
yes.
came up a few different times, and so we've seen this shift happening over time. Now, what's interesting is that Jabba keeps losing things. So he lost his son.
Yep.
I mean, you could say they were taken, whatever, and now he's losing his, staff's baby Rancor. Although I guess it was a gift. I guess is what Muchi was supposed to be. She's a gift.
Yeah, I think so.
Something
I
like
thought
that.
what was cool is Bib. You could get this. You got the sense there. You could almost read or like translate. He made some kind of a threat towards Sid, and that's when she replies back, "Hey, don't worry, I've got my best people on it." And they're not really her best people, right? I mean, she just met these guys, but she's probably saying that to keep them off her back, keep them off her back. So
Now she's a Trandoshan, is that right?
yeah, she's a transition.
Okay.
Yeah, from upstate New York.
Right. just like Jabba's what was it, Jabba's uncle or nephew?
Oh yeah, he had what was that accent?
I don't know.
I don't remember. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You always you used to do the imitation for it.
I don't know the accent, but yeah, it's
I can't remember the guy's name.
I don't remember either. I'm not doing it. We're not doing it. Go back and listen to an old episode. They're playing
Dang it.
out there. Yeah.
I tried, folks.
What about the reading that guy?
Yeah, that.
Okay, so we get back to the slave camp. The Bad Batch they've been captured, they've been chained up, and it was comforting to see that Wrecker could break out of that at any moment. But he knew that he couldn't because one, they didn't know where Echo or Omega was, and two, they were surrounded, so it really didn't do anything. They were just going to get recaptured. So better that kind of like what I think it was Tech was saying, just save your strength, right? And then they this is where that moment comes in where Tech is like the main, like he finally says that, hey, we're out of our element here, right? We are doing things that we've never been trained on doing. They're gifted, but this is not a standard military operation, he says, and they've never had to go rescue a child from slave traders. Again, this is not typical. Well, I say that, although there were missions where clones were doing this, but they didn't do that. How about
they
that,
did, right? Yeah, most things ended up blowing up by the time they were done with it.
Yeah, that's what they were sending to blow stuff up, which we saw them do quite a bit of. At that point, that Zagarian leader comes out and says, that we're not in the Republic anymore, referencing that the Republic is outlawed slavery, and now because the Empire is here, it's back, and it's back in a big way. And this is where Omega's kind of crawling around, snooping around. She's trying to get over to all of their equipment. She lets a rock hit, or she pushes a rock too far, and it falls over, and it gives her away. And that's
we skipped a part though, where she's on the ship. Yeah, she was on the ship. So she's playing with the doll, and she's customizing her trooper.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah, now she's a real Bad Batcher, which I thought was cute.
Bad Batcher, yeah.
Right, and then the Zagarians came onto the ship, and they were looking around the ship, and so this is where she calls him the droid Gonki.
Gonki, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry about
Hi,
that.
Gonki. Gonki's like, and then just
pops down. Yeah,
pops down. It was great, and that's why she went out knowing that something wasn't right, and so she left the ship trying to figure out what was going on.
Yep. On that too, we talked about in the last episode about, or maybe it's 2 episodes ago, when Wrecker decorated that little space for her. We were questioning what that space was.
Oh, and it is a gun. Yeah, it is a gun area.
Yeah, it was a gun turret area. So I wonder if that thing works. Like, I'd like to see her at some point in the space battle firing off that.
I hope she goes. I hope she goes pew 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 pew.
Or let's try spinning. That's a good trick. But yeah, that's we got a good solid confirmation on that one. So yes, thank you and apologies. Yeah, so she's kind of snooping around, trying, realizing that she's got to go rescue him, or at least they're in hot water at this point. And so,
what'd you think about the hand signals? her and Hunter were kind of doing it. I thought, oh, she's actually catching on. I was like, no, these are very dumbed down.
Yeah. No, I think the way I read the first one, I think he was like, no, don't come over here. And then she was like, so go that way. And he was just like, okay, whatever. Just, I'm not
Okay,
going to be able to
I
stop
thought
you.
he was basically pointing at the weapons, but clearly, was it Echo made the spoke really loudly. We're not anything without our gear and weapons.
Yeah, I don't know that Hunter was for it. I don't think he was. I think he was still trying to figure out, okay, that would be the last
Right.
option, you know? But that was picking up on the, no, don't even try it. It's not worth it. You're not going to do it, which he was probably right. Although he underestimated her, and she had a different plan, which was to free the, I thought that was a good moment where they capture her and she's like, you know, I was freeing, what was the, I think I wrote it in here. The line that she used when they said, you know, she was trying to get away or sneak up, and she said something about,
I wasn't sneaking. I was unlocking.
Yep.
That was clever.
That was pretty clever. So this unleashes the rancor, I guess, at that point. And this thing just, again, I was not expecting it. As soon as you heard the noises, it was pretty easy to kind of see what it was going to be. But they mentioned it was an adolescent rampaging rancor. I don't know if we've ever seen one like this. I'm trying to think in other like video games and stuff that they're never been this small.
It threw me off guard because I was like, that's not a rancor. Like with the snout yeah, it was
they
very
grow into it, right? Or they grow out of it. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, it was just very different. Of course, once you got a broader view of Muchi, you had a much better idea. But still, it was the they still kept thinking the kid was Muchi, though. They didn't know who Muchi was. They still kept thinking it was the kid. What's the race? Fallines. They're all Fallines. We had some questions on Discord of whether or not we had seen the Fallines on screen before, which we had seen them in some of the Clone Wars episodes. I think it's season 5. I think for the whole bounty hunter type thing. Yeah, but it was cool to see Fallines on screen again, though. And so for those who might not know exactly what Fallines are like what Prince Shisor was in the in Legends material, the ones with the pheromones, and he was trying to woo Leia Organa.
Yeah, was he ever?
Yep. Good times.
Thirsty. Sorry, that's what the kids say these days. I don't know if that's true or what that means. Okay, so where are we? Oh yeah, so Muchi comes in, and so Wrecker breaks free of the chains and all that. So I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. And then this is where we get the big reveal where they're like, hey, you know, and the father's like, no, I'm not Muchi, that's Muchi, right? And they're like, whoa, wait a second, it's the Rancor that's Muchi, which throws into all kinds of questions about Batista and all that, which we'll get into with the Patreon stuff a little bit later. But yeah, Muchi pretty much takes everybody out. Like, these guys are really no match for even an adolescent Rancor at that, until that Brezzik dragon thing comes back again. And that's when it started giving kind of its run for money. Although it was kind of a one-trick pony. It looked like everything that it did, if you watch that scene closely, it always had the upper hand because it was always using its tail. And the tide shifts between that fight between them once Muchi grabs the tail, and it's pretty much all over at that point. Like, she just takes him out. So
and then it runs off.
Yep, and then it runs off. Excuse me. But yeah, we had Brezzik and Muchi fighting. We had Hunter and the leader. They go into this kind of a face-off thing, and I thought that was cool. The way, you know, he gets hit with that whip, and you think that would have been enough to take him down, but he like fought through the pain, or just like persevered through it, or whatever he needed to do to get grab his hand. And the minute he took that weapon away from him, it was pretty much all over. Although I get it because it's a kid's show, right? But I thought, man, Hunter's got that dagger. He's just gonna chuck that at that guy's head and just kill him. I mean, there's no way he's gonna be able, he's got no armor on, but he didn't do that, and that's fine. But yeah, I mean, that was what was going on there. You thought, is it just him? Was that a clone? Was that a effect of the mutation? Something that some kind of power that he had or whatever? But he fought through that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's because he had it wrapped on the armor or what. Because he did have it on his pauldron, so maybe there was some sort of absorption there. I mean, clearly he was affected by it, though.
Yeah, it almost took him to his knees there.
Right, but then he just, I don't know. He had the heroic moment where he's just like, "No!" It's like back in the old wrestling days, you know, where they drop your hand for the third time, but you catch it, and you're like,
yeah, he went Hulkamania on him.
That's right. Yeah, he hulked out. It was great. And of course, I love the weapon, though, that the slave trader had, because with the cat look and everything, it looks like Tigra, you know, from Thundercats. The same weapon and everything. Theirs was electrified. Chitara, well, yeah, Chitara has the bow staff.
bow staff.
And
Who
then
was it that had that one? It was
Tigra.
Tigra.
Yeah. Tigra had the whip thing that would collapse back, but so pretty sure this was all heavily influenced by Thundercats.
Oh, absolutely.
Rightfully so.
Rightfully so.
It's amazing. Wow, we are all over the place yet again. But yeah, but no, I think it was just more we'll just call it up to the pauldron or something. He had some way of being able to do it. But yeah, clearly the slave trader had no idea did we get a name for who this guy was?
No, and I usually watch it with the captions on, and they never said his name that I caught. I would have written it down, but no.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it said leader.
Right. But clearly the dragon's a game changer though, and very effective, very quick. It's very kind of like serpent-like how it moves, and of course it can glide and move around, and gave them a bit of a run for their money there too.
Yeah,
because it was just smacking around the Bad Batch too.
Yep. Oh yeah. Like I said, it was pretty much in control of everything until Muchi got the upper hand on her.
Yep.
So Omega and Echo, they run off to go free the slaves, and we catch up with them a little bit later. But they run into a little bit of resistance, and this is where Omega picks up the bow that we see her use. So we now have the origin. I thought maybe it was a crosshair bow that was in the weapons locker or whatever, but this looks like it's going to be her weapon of choice going forward, which I thought was pretty cool. Right?
Yeah.
What's that?
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say it gives her the she's ranged attack. You know what I mean? So she can be a part of the team in combat and still be far away. Not mean she doesn't have a blaster. It could be the same thing with a blaster, but the fact that she doesn't have to engage so close.
So she's really replacing Crosshair now, huh?
Yeah, exactly. She is.
Oof.
I know.
Ouch. Yeah, well, I saw that they had the bows early in the episode. I was like, okay, these are. Yeah. I couldn't remember exactly what the trailer was, but I was like, oh, this is where she's gonna get it. But yeah, clearly, I mean, the thing's huge on her, and it would look more like a shield, that she had on her forearm rather than a weapon until she had it, pop out. Mm-hmm. But pretty cool weapon though. She's like, whoa, yeah, I'm gonna keep me one of these.
There's a moment there where we've kind of talked about it, but Muchi and the Brezek are kind of fighting, and it's finally when she gets a hold of the tail. It's pretty one-sided at that point. That runs off, flees, and then we get the Muchi versus Wrecker fight, which I thought was hilarious. Number one, the one thing that caught my eye was Wrecker, it was Tech. Suddenly is like looking it up, like, okay, well, how do we beat this thing? And it's like he goes to Wikipedia and types in, adolescent rancor, and then read the entry on their
that's right
on rancors and realized, oh, okay, they're they Alpha Authority is really big on them, and so that's the way you're gonna have to take him out. And of course, Wrecker, who's just looking to have a fight and smash things and all that, jumps right in. Right. And they start fighting. There was a quick moment in there. This is probably intentional. I don't know if it really means anything other than just kind of a tribute. But Wrecker grabs him by the neck and pulls him back, and he makes his face that looks like Jabba's face when Leia is choking him out with the chains there on the sail barge in Return of the Jedi, which I thought was kind of cool. But again, probably nothing more than a little homage to what was happening there.
That was great when they were slugging out. And they're both getting really tired. And then they're just kind of, everybody's just starting to walk up slowly around them to check it out. And like, what's going on? And Tech's like, Wrecker's lost a step. What's taking so long?
Yeah, they're getting tired.
But then
just stay down.
Right. But then it was also like, I had you in the back of my head. Well, has he really lost a step, or is something wrong with him? I mean, and you're infecting my way of thinking these days.
Yeah, well, it could be a little bit of both. It could be that he's not on his A game because he's impacted by the whatever's going on, the trauma in his head.
Yeah, or he's just fighting a rancor.
Or he's fighting a rancor. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's nothing. It's not a feat we would put in front of anyone else. How about that?
Right.
But there was so here's one thing that I did think about, and we kind of jumped over. But when Echo and Omega get to the speeder bikes, they send the father and the daughter away, and they kind of race off. I thought it's interesting. I wonder if we'll see them again in some way, if they will pop up. And this is what I mean by the Dave Filoni planting the seed, and then 6 episodes later, 4 seasons later, you get the reference and this character's back, and now there's an opportunity for that character to maybe
repay them.
Exactly. Repay the debt that was paid to them by Omega and the Bad Batch. So it could be a critical point. It could be a critical moment, a good relationship that was built there, and we just don't see it. For us, it looks like filler. Like, oh, this was just an episode to explain a rancor that we maybe or maybe did not see in Return of the Jedi. And I just don't think it's that. I think it's more than that. It's probably first and foremost hey, let's introduce Sid because she's going to be a hub for the stories
Right.
going forward. On top of that, hey, one of those stories is it's just going to so happen that these characters are going to come back and play a pivotal role in that little thread. It could be nothing major or significant, but the fact that they come back gives weight to it, right? Gives credence to
Right.
it all.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, they're then Omega makes that comment about, up close, she's kind of cute. Her being Muchi.
With all the drool and the spit and everything else. Yeah.
Yeah. I
She's
wonder how long that flight went too.
adorable.
Like 30 minutes, 45 minutes? I don't know. It probably went a long time. It felt like they were just sitting there watching them beat the crap out of each other the whole time.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so we get back to Sid's place, and this is where Bib Fortuna's there. He's got the two Gamorrean guards with him. This all looks very familiar to us.
I liked seeing the Gamorrean guards on it in animated form, though. They looked really, really good.
Yeah, I thought they looked better, and I'm going to get a bunch of crap for this, but I thought they looked better than the ones that we saw in The Mandalorian. But
without question. Without question, yeah.
They just looked more like the plastic, latex costume, what I'm used to seeing, right?
And they were bulkier too. They weren't
yeah.
so skinny like in the
Well.
Gladiator. Yeah, they were very prosperous.
Yes, they were not the thin ones that we saw in The Mandalorian.
Right.
So, and then the Bad Batch show up with Muchi, and Omega's riding her, which I thought was really cool. The fact that they've got her that tame. So, and that's why I've got questions about whether or not that's the Rancor, and I've got theories as to how it gets to where it is and all of that. But I mean, we're led to believe this is all kind of a fun thing. Even Bib Fortuna comes out and he's like, "Oh, my Muchi, blah, blah, whatever," and
yeah,
everybody loves this thing. And then you see the Rancor in Return of the Jedi. And again, I don't want to spoil anything here because we're going to talk about it a little bit later on the Patreon stuff. But yeah, that doesn't seem like it's the same one, but could be. Who knows?
Yeah.
They say goodbye to Muchi. They run off. I don't know. And I got a question too. We'll talk about this as well, but whether or not we see Muchi later on, I think it's possible. Maybe not as likely as something else, but if we do, then we're getting into Jabba again. And I really want to go to Jabba in this one.
I don't think it's necessary, at least not directly. But yeah, I'm wondering if this was just, we used something we know really well to make it a little more interesting. And I think to your point earlier, to give you this something to talk about type of thing as well.
A little more connectedness there too.
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, again, we're flirting more with the underworld. So we're getting into Jabba's space, if you will.
Right.
So it wouldn't be surprising, especially now if they start working with Sid more often. We know that there's definitely a connection with Jabba. You know, she's in the Rolodex for him to call. So
yeah, I like how she called. She references Hunter as, "Hey, you dark and broody, come inside." She wanted to talk to him about that. And this is where we get the information. So I know we've already talked about a lot of this stuff. So Fennec Shan, she's a bounty hunter. She's up and coming. She mentioned that she was cunning and ruthless, which we saw definitely in the last episode. We talked about it. Making
a name for herself already. Yep.
And it's unknown as to who hired her, which again, if it was the Kaminoans, they would have told us it was them, in my opinion, last episode. And they probably would have said it again in this episode or had something. I just don't think it's the Kaminoans. And we probably need to do a show, if not here soon, on who that's going to be. I think we'll know more in the next episode that she shows up, but I think the verdict's still out there.
But when we think about Jango, though, if we think back to Attack of the Clones, they weren't really connected to the Kaminoans very quickly at that point either. Like Jango, they tracked Jango back to somewhere, not necessarily who Jango was working for, so to speak, right? I'm saying that was probably a bit out of that's probably not quite correct either, but it wasn't like a direct correlation of and that was more of a hiring for a job type of thing anyway. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to think who else it would be that makes sense without some other piece of information that we just don't know for it to be somebody else.
Right.
Yeah. There's got to be some piece of information that's just eluding us that would point anywhere except them, because who else would know about Omega at this point?
Right. And I mean, outside of like the Empire or Palpatine
but they don't know either, right? But I mean, they don't know either.
Presumably we don't know, but
we don't have a reason. We don't have a reason to believe that they know, at least.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We'd have to come up with 2 additional theories with not a lot of weight behind either one of them to get to that point, right? To connect those. I know
that's our speciality.
But yeah, it's our speciality. There was something else too. She says that this was a direct commission, and
Yeah.
I clued in on that because that tells me, typically with bounties like we see in maybe not in Mandalorian, probably not a good example, but let's think about Empire Strikes Back, right? Vader goes out, brings a ton of bounty hunters in, says, "Look, here's the bounty. Here's who you're after. No disintegrations. Go out and find him." So it's like whoever finds him first, kind of thing. And that's not what I got a sense of here. I got the sense that somebody hired Fennec Shan directly and said, "You need to go find this person." And it's not like this wide cast of a net, right? They didn't take like a shotgun approach to go find a bunch of bounty hunters to go after it.
Right.
I may be wrong in that. And
no, I think that's right. No, I think that's right because again, the benefactor don't want to be known.
Right.
And I think, and this does sound a bit like Mandalorian, although there were some inconsistencies with how they went this when they were looking for Grogu with the client. But they presented it very much like that too, right? I think Grief said it was a direct commission.
Yeah.
Very hush hush. They don't want to give you any information about what's going on or why you're after anything like that. And it's because you want to mask who the true benefactor is. And so even if it's a direct commission, it might not even be the ones who are getting Omega or the ones that are truly funding it.
Right.
They're going to somebody else who is then doing the specific work in that regard.
Yeah. Like a Sam Wessel, Jango Fett kind of thing.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah. But so, that direct, I did pick up on that too. Direct commission definitely tells you they want to keep it quiet.
Yep. Sid says that, we talked about this, about they're going to need money and friends. And he said they're kind of in short supply of both of those right now.
Right.
But I do get the sense that he's going to take her up on that offer and they'll be back when they either need more money or need to make friends or, whatever. I need her for more information. How about that? They can come to her as a source. So it's good for them.
Right.
There's so there was a moment in there where Fennec says that she's interested in them, that somebody must be interested in them. She says it very suspiciously. And this is where I felt like, okay, can she be trusted or not? Like she almost kind of leaves it open. I think Hunter picks up on that. And we mentioned it a little bit earlier about he picks up on, wait a minute, I've kind of, this person knows a lot about us now. But yeah, makes a comment about they must be pretty valuable when it really is only Omega that's probably the obviously the person that's being hunted here, not the Bad Batch. But
I would think that Sid probably has a couple of angles though, and she's probably slow playing a bit here. But she called them clone deserters early on, right? So she could still be going down that path of, well, you have this clearly a very special group that is unlike the rest of the clone army.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense that someone else would want them. But I think even she would question some of this stuff about, a direct commission and why they would give it to a very up and coming bounty hunter for a whole team. Doesn't make a lot of sense, right? And so I think even Sid starts to see that there's something different though, and probably will turn her eyes to Omega pretty quickly after that. If there's even an inkling of some other piece of information that comes out from it.
Yep. Yeah. We'll see. Like I said, this isn't the last time we've seen her. Obviously we'll see her in a couple of other different episodes coming up ahead. But
I like the character. I'm totally cool with that.
Yeah,
I like this character a lot.
I like Rhea Perlman a lot.
Well, Sid just doesn't take any crap either from people. She's just this smart aleck. I love it.
Yep. Yeah, like I said, upstate New York, whatever.
Not from Boston.
Not from Boston. So in the last moments here, I guess the final questions is like, where do they go from here? I mean, I've got questions over. Will they stay? Do they stay here? Do they leave? Do they head for Ida? Do they look for Rex? What do you think's next for the Bad Batch? And it's hard to say, I know, because
it's they have a name, right? So they have a name, right? And that's about it. They don't have anything else about Fennec Shan, about where to go. So my guess is, do they have somebody else with more information? I think to me, it would be like, okay, well, it might be working with Sid to say, okay, how else can we get more information about this person? Like, what other resources do you have that we might be able to lean on, given that you figured all this out within a day, right? So what else can we do? So it would make sense for them to stay in Ord Mantell and to work with Sid a little bit more. But my feeling is that we're going to go find somebody else now, or Fennec is going to somehow catch up with them in some way. She heard noise of them fighting a rancor, which doesn't happen very often. Of course, I don't know how that would come about, but if she's in the bounty hunter guild, maybe noise like that gets around with Jabba, right?
Yeah.
So of others in that circle of a group of mercenaries or a group of highly trained people with a kid got the rancor back, and so Fennec finds them rather than them finding Fennec.
Yeah.
But yeah, and to talk about Rex for a second, though, I think some of it is we're probably looking at, if it's not a mid-season type cliffhanger, I'm with you. It's starting to look like it might be a little further down the road to where we get him to where but again, I think I'm trying to think where it makes more sense, though. Is it more on the Wrecker side of things with the chips? And when we finally catch that part of the story up to where they need Rex, or is it something else where they need Rex's help in order to find someone to help, handle all of that? Of course, Tech knows everything, so I presume Tech's a surgeon as well. But anyway, so I'm kind of curious trying to figure out where Rex fits into the story at this point. Yeah,
it's hard. I saw someone actually out on I forget what website it was. Somewhere, someone had taken all of the footage that was released prior to season 1 starting, and they filtered out everything we've already seen and left everything that's left, which was fascinating because there's still a lot of stuff in there, and you're scratching your head going, okay, stuff that you thought was related or correlated in some way probably isn't now. But it does make you wonder just how all of this still, happens. And that Rex scene looks even more interesting because I think if I remember correctly, they're kind of coming over the horizon and they're kind of seeing the fallen Star Destroyer, which I think, okay, maybe that's got to be Jakku. Well, not Jakku.
No,
sorry,
yeah.
The site where that Star Destroyer landed back in, was it season 7? Sorry, not Jakku. I was trying to think of the name of the planet, but I don't think we actually had the name of the planet.
Even you want to go back to Jakku.
I don't know why everybody wants to go back to Jakku.
Yeah, and it's curious because even then we see that I forgot what they call the Republic version of the Star Destroyers, but Republic cruisers or something like that. But yeah, because they even fired the engines up in the trailer, if I recall. So why would they do that if the thing is buried in the sand or buried in the dirt? So it's just interesting. But yeah, I like it when people do that, though. You could just carve out to see, okay, well, how much was in the first 3 episodes, right? Because most shows, all the trailer stuff, you get right away because that's just the first thing they had ready. So they were able to pump that out and you get 80% of it is all that and very little else. But this seems to be a little bit different, though.
Yeah. Okay. Well, before we get out of here, I guess give me your final thoughts on this episode. What'd you think? Did you like it? Feel it was filler?
It was enjoyable. I could see why people would call it filler because I think this is probably becoming a bit more filler than what we've seen in the other shows. I think last one, I think there was a good argument for it not to be filler. I think this one you could start to see that. But I think it's important, though, the way that they're doing this, while it's a kind of a filler-ish episode, there are pieces in here that are helping further and progress the story. So which is why it is not filler. And so could they have done it a different way? Sure. Right. But we are going to get 16 episodes. And I think when you have 16 episodes, you're going to stretch that story out a bit because otherwise it just seems like I know some people like breakneck speed and they like to just be able to have, one thing after another and progress all of that. But I think it's okay to have time. It's okay for things to take a little bit of time to develop. And I'm liking the pacing. I'm enjoying the pacing immensely with the series so far. And I think that it's working really, really well to where it doesn't feel like it's dragging on. And we've talked about this before, where sometime you get done with a book or you get done with something, you're like, I don't care about anything that just happened in that book. And it didn't do anything compared to where the other book left off. At least this is saying, no, there is connected tissue. We're bringing it in at the beginning. There's a little throughout, and then we're going back on target when we get to the end. We didn't get that last part this time. And that's a little bit frustrating. I hope that they get to a bit more of a teaser of where we're going next. But I have a feeling those are going to be reserved for more of the bigger moments in the series as we get a little bit further into it.
Yeah. Yeah. They're, the terms filler and fan service really bug the hell out of me, honestly, to no end, because it's so like, it's so one-sided and it doesn't really take into account, what the full storyline and what's meaningful to people and all that. I'll say this, the fact that it's only, these are 22-minute episodes, right? For the most part. I mean, they're not like, you're not investing a whole lot of time into these. So if we get, 16 of these things, or you won't get that many of them, but you know what I'm saying?
Right.
If you get a handful of these, that's fine. It's not like it's a huge time sink. I would agree. I like the pacing of it. It does feel very familiar to me as well.
Yeah.
Like it feels like I'm watching Rebels. It feels like it's Clone Wars and some kind of a mix up there. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, that worked. And I love those series. And I'm starting to really love this series as well. Where it goes. And the one thing that really nags at me, probably more than it should, is whether or not we're going to get a season 2. Like, I'm already trying to think ahead. Like, what does season 2 look like? And I know we're only 5 episodes into season 1, but
Right.
if that is a possibility, then wow, yeah. I mean, there could be stuff that they're laying the groundwork for now that we won't even see manifest really until season 2. We saw that with Mandalorian. There were things that were laid in there that we didn't see immediately in season 1. We saw them in season 2. So it's really hard to say, what is being thrown in there for the sake of exposition versus what's being thrown in there that's going to carry weight and kind of move, plots and threads forward.
So along those lines, at what point do you think we'll have a good idea if we are leaning towards a season 2? Like, is it once we get past the midway point, or you think it's going to take all the way until we get to the last few episodes of the season?
I think it's going to take the last episodes of the season.
I honestly
do.
Yeah.
And I don't know that they.
I don't think they're going to come out and say anything early. Yeah.
Right. I think they're gonna do it as though, hey, it could go either way.
Mm-hmm.
It ends and it feels like you had some kind of a finite ending to it, or there's enough there that you could they could certainly pick up and run with in a season 2 if they wanted to. Right. So
Right.
I think both of those are certainly possibilities. And knowing Dave, he's going to kind of leave that open, and we'll see how that goes. But.
Yeah, you can't venture out too far from the tree of trust, or whatever it was they called it.
Oh yeah,
the trust tree. Yeah, the trust tree. Yeah, it has to shave some branches off every once in a while and build a moat around it, and memories of celebration.
That was a good analogy there, by the way. Okay, I guess that's it. You got any final thoughts? Anything else?
Yeah. So tomorrow's Memorial Day, so just a quick appreciation for everyone that has sacrificed so much for the things that we get to enjoy with doing the podcast and doing what we do and just everyday life as we know it. So huge thank you for everyone who has made such a sacrifice for all of us here in our country here in the U.S. And of course, all the veterans who have served. It's another opportunity to recognize all of them as well. So a huge thank you and a moment of remembrance for all of them.
Yep. Yeah, as some of you guys may not know, I know we've got some international folks with us that follow the show. Tomorrow's Memorial Day, so certainly want to honor all of those veterans, as you mentioned. So, okay, we'll stick around because if you're a Patreon member, well, don't stick around because we're going to go away and come back, but we're going to record a special episode here that we've talked about, and we'll get into Batista and Muchi and all kinds of other stuff. So, I think, let me just make sure I don't have anything on my show notes. No, that was it. All right, we'll be back next week for episode 6. And we've got some more stuff coming down the pipe here. We're starting to break out the comic book stuff. So Patreon members will see that pretty soon.
Well, hey, quick plug for where they can find us, right? So
go ahead.
Yeah, if you want to talk to us anytime, we're on Discord. It's a chat service. So eargluemedia.com/Discord. If you are interested in what we're doing for Patreon, you go over and take a look. Albert just did a nice update of all the tiers, and we got a new kind of welcome message out there for you as well. So that's patreon.com/thecantinacast, I believe, right?
That's it.
Yep. So go out there and take a look at that. If you like to contribute, we'd love to have you over there. And there's a few tiers. If not, we'd love to have you just come and talk to us in Discord as well and just interact with us and have a great time. We've been having a lot of great Bad Batch conversation, and we've got a bunch of other fantastic podcasts across the Earglue Media Network and great people who love Star Wars as well as a variety of other things. So love for you to have you guys come join us in the chat.
Yep. Okay. And then last thing, I've got some new credits, a new outro. I don't know if this is going to work.
Oh,
I was trying to get this uploaded here before the show came on, so I haven't had a chance to test this. Hopefully it plays well and you get to see it. But yeah, this is a new outro that we're running with. And I'm going to apologize in advance because I don't have everybody that signed up. So we mentioned all the new Patreon members at the beginning. They're not in this credits. They will be in the next version of it. I just didn't get a chance to do it. So with that, we will see you guys next week.
You're still listening? Wow. That's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.